All right, welcome. This is the HyFlex Learning Community webinar for April 2024. Today we're talking about the HyFlex Collaborative Conference, the HyFlex Conference coming up in June. And we have some of our co-leaders of that conference effort with us, Jerry and Gina. And we may have some more people joining us. Our focus today, we'll start by talking about the conference primarily, kind of the proposals and how registrations and things like that, and just the theme in general. But I would encourage you guys to think of questions that you have for us, because after we talk about the conference, we'll also talk more about how HyFlex is going from our perspective in the world that we live in, right? Because things have changed. Over the last, we have like pre-COVID, and we have COVID, and then COVID emergence, and now we have post-COVID. I'm thinking we're probably post-COVID now. And so there's some really interesting things that are going on with the implementations, not just here in the States, but really around the world. So let me do some real quick introductions, and since we have a small group, everyone can introduce themselves if you'd like to. Just a brief note on where you are, kind of what your role is, and what you're interested or your experience with HyFlex is. Brian Beatty, I'm at San Francisco State. I'm a professor in the Instructional Design and Technology program. We started HyFlex as the name back in the concept in 2005, really started talking about it in 2006 or so, and have taught in the program that is now a fully online program that has face-to-face options for some students when we have HyFlex courses here at San Francisco State. But I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I'm just going to go with the people in my list. So Gloria, you're next on my list.
All right. Hi, everyone. I am an instructional designer at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I helped create our first HyFlex course, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now. And in that process, met Brian, and since then got pulled into this HyFlex learning community and have done some presenting and writing and various things around HyFlex.
Okay, thanks, Jerry, or thanks, Glory. Jerry, you must be on my mind here. So Jerry, can you introduce yourself next?
Absolutely. I'm Jerry Rivera-Wilson. I am Director of Professional Development and Continuing Education at the University of Albany within the School of Education. I met Brian, a few years ago when I invited him to present on Ed Trends, which is a weekly webinar that I do. And from that, Gina and I were very interested in learning and doing more about HyFlex in K-12 settings. And so we've been doing some research and presented, and also have contributed a chapter in the HyFlex book that is authored by Brian. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be involved with the HyFlex Collaborative Conference. And I guess I'll pass the baton to Gina, Brian?
Sure, that sounds good. Yep, that works.
Hi, everybody. Gina Riley, Program Director of Adolescent Special Education Programming and Gifted Education Programming at CUNY Hunter College here in New York City. I work closely with Jerry on HyFlex research. At CUNY, we also teach our student teaching practicum classes, as well as our applied behavior analysis classes in a HyFlex modality, and have for years. So it's nice to be able to teach teachers about HyFlex so that they can then bring HyFlex into their schools as well.
All right, thanks, Jerry, Gina. And I was just looking at a study today from Thailand, talking about basically language learning in the secondary schools there using HyFlex and some of their learning experiences. Really interesting stuff going on across the spectrum of higher ed. Okay, so let's see if we can get some of our participants to do a real brief intro. How about I'm just going to go, and I'm seeing a list in terms of, I don't know how it's ordered, maybe first name or something like that, but that can't be true because Julie, you're next on my list.
There you go. I'm Julie Lytle. I'm the Director of Distributed and Lifelong Learning at Bexley Seabury Seminary. It's based in Chicago, and I'm based in Massachusetts, as a lot of our faculty and staff are distributed around the country. We've been doing I guess I'm here because I'm trying to learn how the language of HyFlex correlates with what I've been doing for the past 30 years. I started a distributed learning model at the Episcopal Divinity School in Massachusetts. I ran that for 10 years before I moved to Bexley Seabury in 2017. So there's been a whole evolution of a variety of types of combined online, offline, on-site
Mhm.
synchronous, asynchronous interactions. And I'm here to get to know what your organization is and how you're doing it.
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I thought of the term HyFlex was needed rather than just hybrid or blended, because it could mean anything. And so I've been, I really try to stick to kind of a fixed definition with some flexibility as much as needed to. But thanks for joining us, Julie. I hope we can get some questions answered. Next is Holly.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. I'm on the East Coast as well as some of you other. I'm from the University of Kentucky. I teach in the Gatton College of Business and have been here since 2007. Currently have two HyFlex classes that I teach. I have 900 students, and it is I did this way before COVID, and actually I didn't call it HyFlex. I even dug up Brian's dissertation from 2002 at Indiana. I called this the 3-in-1. And again, I'm in marketing. So when you think about it, and I have a teenager, a detergent, shampoo, conditioner, and body wash is all 3-in-1. And so I give the students the choice. The biggest thing is that I give the students a choice. It's in a principles of marketing class. And I have, like I said, I've been doing this since 16 in this particular class. I've taught probably 11,000 students in this modality. And I have recently finished, or almost finishing, my first year of getting my LTD PhD. So I am working in this realm. I need some refinement of my research questions, not only to help present at this conference, but for my proposal.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Holly. Have you written about this anywhere yet? 3-in-1?
The 3-in-1 is in the Marketing Education Review Journal, and I wrote more early on with my UDT or UDL Universal Design. I wrote that in the Journal of Marketing Education. So both two publications in my discipline are where you can find those articles.
Oh, good. Yeah, I keep a HyFlex learning community bibliography. Try to make it up to date. There's like almost 300 entries in there now. I'll just see if I have any of your stuff in there. If not, we'll connect and I'll make sure I add it to it. I just added two more dissertations to that list earlier this morning. One of my own students finished last year. I have another student who's doing a dissertation around HyFlex. Actually, I'm a member of that committee. She's doing HyFlex for yoga instruction at a university level. So it's really an interesting idea there. And there's a whole bunch of dissertations out. There's got to be at least a dozen dissertations over the last 7 or 8 years. One of our colleagues, Stephanie Donovan, who's not here with us today, did, I think, the first one I knew of HyFlex a number of years ago, maybe eight or 10 years ago by now. So I like to see the dissertations. Why? Because they do in-depth research and they have really wonderful literature reviews too, which is very helpful. Thanks, Holly. John, you're next on my list. Can you just do a short introduction?
My name is John Bellotti. I'm an instructional designer at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. I've been doing this sort of thing for about 25 years. Actually started 25 years with Citrix, teaching to people in Manila, literally like on the other side of the globe. So right now, my biggest struggle is trying to convince instructors that this is an effective mode of teaching because they don't think it works and they don't think students learn this way. But I've been doing this for a long time, so I know it does. So I'm interested in learning more about that.
Yeah, every newer way approach, every newer technology, we have the same cycle, right? Can this work? Should it work? Should we do it? How can we do it? Okay, I guess we can do it. And then the next thing comes along. Thanks, John, for joining us. Latanya.
Hi, everyone. I'm Latanya Motley. I teach educational technology at Northland Pioneer College. I'm also the department chair for the instructional technology and curriculum support at the college. And I've been with HyFlex for almost 4 years, 3.5 years, probably 3 years. We've been doing a pilot at our college on HyFlex. And I started with Brian's course that he taught at EDUCAUSE. Myself and my dean went through that, and my dean thought it was a great methodology or strategies for delivery. So we brought it to our leadership at our campus, and they were able to do a pilot. And we've been running that pilot for 3 years. And good news is that we just got it accepted as a permanent modality at our college. So now we're going to move forward with offering HyFlex. We also have something called MPC Sync, which is a version of HyFlex, but it doesn't allow them to attend synchronous or asynchronously. They can attend synchronously or virtually, or in person or virtually. So we have that, and then we have the HyFlex now, which is our permanent modality, where they can attend the 3 different modalities. So I'm here now to figure out what we do next. Where do we go from there now that we've gotten approved for as a full modality in the future? So
Yeah.
that's it.
Growing up HyFlex on a campus goes through stages, and getting official approval is an important stage if it's going to have any major impact. And having that name is important in your registration system. We just got this about 3 years ago into our registration system in a way that our system could adopt. We're part of a 23 campus system. It's called HyFlex like simultaneous broadcast or something. So it assumes the synchronous online and the face-to-face. Although we have some HyFlex courses, like in your campuses, you might, where it's really face-to-face and online asynchronous, and there is no synchronous. So there's a lot of variations on that, but having that definition is important. And as a researcher, I find that tag is important so that I can look at data, that's coded correctly, rather than relying just on anecdotes or the conversations I have with faculty around campus. So anyway, thanks for joining us, LaTanya. And Stacy.
Hi there. I'm in the community college in Boone, North Carolina, and I'm the director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. I also teach math, and I'm on a HyFlex committee for the North Carolina Association of Two-Year Colleges, where we're trying to revise the definition a little bit from the way that the system office is requiring North Carolina community colleges to deliver HyFlex learning, so that we have some more choices, because they're really trying to put a lot of restrictions on us, and we would like to be able to offer the students more choice instead of being told exactly how things have to be done.
Imagine that, a system office trying to control what you're doing at the local level. And so we see that it layers, right? So we have our university definition and expectations, but we know in the classrooms, the faculty are still making a lot of choices about how they're actually going to implement this. So the more freedom we can, the more reasonable we can make those rules for faculty to follow, the more likely they'll follow them. Otherwise, they're just going to, some of them at least, will find ways of doing it, because they're really there to serve the students the best way they can. Yet our systems need reporting data and things like that. So we have this, this is a challenge, and this is one of our growing up challenges. So thank you guys for joining us. Let's shift focus to the conference coming up. Jerry does most of the work leading our effort. I mean, we have a collaborative team of, I don't know, about 8 of us or so who work on this, but Jerry does take the lead on a lot of things. And so, Jerry, do you want to lead us forward in talking about the conference?
Happy to do so. So the conference this year, as you notice, I placed in the chat, we're still accepting proposals for the conference. This year, the conference is on June 27th. It's on a Thursday. And for those of you who live in upstate New York, you know that that's the end of the academic K-12 school year. And we also are trying to find a time that it would not only just work in New York, but everywhere. But being mindful of the fact that I'm located in New York, we ended up going with that date. This is our second annual conference, and we have partnered with ACE to help us with our conference this year. We had over 120, I believe. Brian, correct me and keep me honest. I think maybe 150 registrants last year. So we had a wonderful turnout, and we believe we will have a similar turnout, if not more, this year. And the conference this year, the way it's, we're calling for proposals, and the call for proposals is pretty explicit, so I won't really spend a lot of time discussing that. But I would like to draw your attention, in particularly to the conference itself. It's intended for those who wish to learn a little bit more about HyFlex and how to adopt it within their campus or within their teaching practice. And also for those who have experience, degrees of experience, those who are perhaps who've done it, and want to learn how to enhance delivery and instruction. And then we're going to also have for those who are a little bit more experienced. In addition to that, we are some of our panels we are planning to have so we can provide a diversified experience, but we're also going to include students this year, individuals who have participated in a HyFlex experience and to have their perspective shared. So the day is full of information. It kicks off with Brian doing the keynote, and then we have different presentations depending on the different strands, and some panel presentations. It's a full day. And the way we capture that information is that we ask the presenters to not only to record their sessions, pre-record, we also record it at the time of the session. So last year, our presenters came from all over, nationally and internationally. So as you can imagine, the time can be a challenge, but we really, it went with one or two hiccups. It pretty much went seamlessly. And having those recordings in advance helped tremendously. And also, as you know, in spirit of HyFlex, everyone has access. And we'll have access to that content beyond the conference. So in the event that something happens, you registered for the conference, cannot attend, you can go back and watch any of the recordings at your leisure and have access to any of the materials that were shared during the conference. And in light of the feedback we received, we decided that we would keep doing this. And so, and we'll continue to do it as long as there's interest and need. The call for proposals has been extended until May 1st. And we would encourage any of you who are here, and maybe perhaps you know a colleague, to submit a proposal to the conference. The criteria for submission is outlined and I dropped that link as well in the chat, and I'll do so again before the session is over. It is pretty short and sweet. And what's really nice about our partner with ACE is that we will have conference proceedings as a result of it. So this is good for those of you who need to publish. This is a so any proposal that is submitted will be reviewed by your peers, jury of your peers. We hope to notify those those who submit within 10 days of the deadline date, so that you'll know and you can make the appropriate accommodations. And there are different type of sessions that you can present. If you want to do usually they're 20-minute sessions. Usually it's 2 presentations within a session. And as again, I said, we would have panel presentations, but this is peer reviewed, and we're excited to be able to again host this conference. This conference is made possible with the partnership of the HyFlex learning community and the HyFlex Collaborative Conference. So again, the date is June 27th. It's from 9 to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. If we may have the day before on Wednesday evening from 6 to 8, where we have sponsors who will be doing a sponsor session on their tools and technologies as it relates to HyFlex learning. And again, that will be recorded and available to those who can not attend or who have attended and would like to revisit the content. Is there anything else you would like me to talk about, Brian?
I was muted, of course. Well, we'll see what questions people have, and we'll give everyone else a chance. I just wanted to highlight that last year we focused a lot on kind of getting started with HyFlex and some of the basic definitions and principles and things like that, because that's where a lot of people were starting with, and we weren't quite sure, what people would need. And clearly, many of us have been doing this for a long time. A long time could be even 3 years, quite honestly. We've got some experience. We're beyond the getting started, and we've had a couple of workshop sessions we've done over the last year around, kind of advancing your HyFlex implementation. And it brings up other issues, like we were mentioned briefly. Someone mentioned, okay, we've got permission and we're working on getting our system to support this. That's one of the major things that has to happen, part of an implementation, and that has implications on our practice. Growing up our faculty development support, beyond just, can you do this? How could you do this? Now, okay, how can we develop best practices and internal resources and developing communities of practice around this in our campuses and our systems, et cetera. Those are some of the things that we'll be talking about. And the other thing I think that's really interesting for me is to bring in student voices. I listen for student voices all the time. I always have. I ask them every week how it's going in the class. And I tell you, the affirmation, excuse me, I get from students about continuing this practice, helps keep me going even when it gets a little more challenging, or there's another hurdle I have to overcome, like our LMS changes and I got to do everything else all over again, or we change our system of recordings or whatever it might be. There are a lot of things to take care of, and making sure that the students that you're serving are actually finding value in what you're doing helps make it important. And it's not just the students that we normally would look at. It's also looking at students who aren't there in our seats, right? Who may be part of a community that we want to serve, that we haven't been able to serve yet. But when they actually start getting some access to this, what difference does it make in their lives? And then they tell incredible stories. All you have to do is ask them or give them the space to tell their stories. So I'm looking forward to some of those things in the conference as well. But Gina, did you have something to add from your perspective on the program or the design of the conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think the leveling up aspect of this year's conference is amazing, right? We get to move past the basics and really talk about, like, I love the idea of student panels. I love the idea of looking at what HyFlex has done in P12, right? Because there are a lot of P12 examples of HyFlex that are not really being illustrated. So I'm so excited to be able to have those conversations at the conference, to hear what people are doing, and also to make connections, right, with others who are also providing HyFlex for their students, or even in more creative ways for professional development or anything else.
Right. Glory, what do you have? Do you have something to add about the conference? I'm sure you do.
Not really, other than it's great. I'm pondering what proposal to submit around the topic, so do consider that. We had a lot of great speakers last time. I look forward to seeing what the speakers show or tell this time.
Yeah, I would say, and if you want to submit a proposal for kind of a session you do with other people, or maybe even a group of people, please do that, because we have full flexibility over the conference program, right? And so we don't have to have everybody just an individual speaker. It could be even a couple of people, and there's some opportunities we have to shift the timing around so that could be possible. We'll be doing that for the student panel in particular. Anyway, the registration is obviously open. We do try to keep this a very affordable event. So there's early registration. Is our early registration still open? I should know that, but I don't remember.
It has passed.
Oh, it has passed. Okay, so we'll strike that out. So the regular registration is there. Students have a special fee. And if you want to bring a group of people, let us know, because there's a possibility that that we can find a way to make that even easier for you to do. let's see. So questions then. Do you have specific questions about the conference, the proposals, or anything like that? Well, let me ask you a question then for you. Who is planning to submit a proposal, or maybe already has? Or did you propose last year? Yeah, I guess all of us would raise our hands, right? We'll all be talking about some of our stuff that's going on. Holly, are you going to talk about anything?
Ollie, yes, I actually want to talk about things, but I know I'm being recorded and AI is talking to me. But no, I want to share because I need some refinement, and I know you and the community can help me refine this. I'm really having trouble with my DV because, in my opinion, choice is an intervention, but apparently choice is not an intervention. And so I have like kind of racked my brain around it just becomes really messy. And so when I think about the combination, so when I talk about participation of 20 class sessions and a student can choose, I am not holding them to the fire. I have it structured so they can have all the choice. And really there's a fourth choice because there's people that will skip. Absentee is, still part of that modality, right? So they
Choice we
can
don't talk about.
we don't talk about the absent. Now, the idea is that I'm giving all these choices so that the attendant or the absence should be pretty small, but it's not the case.
Well, yeah, actually, one of the first things I wrote about this was around, I was reporting on the participation patterns I was seeing. I think this was in 2007. And one of the things I remarked on was I thought it was really interesting because even though everybody had all these options, and I let them know, hey, if you're not here in person, I expect you online. And in that day and age, we didn't do online synchronous, we just did online asynchronous. But there were still students who would not do that. And so I still had the 5 to 10%. So in a class of, I don't know, 25 people, there was seemed to be always like 2 or 3 people who just weren't showing up for whatever reason. And honestly, I still have that today with 3 modes. And I track the participation, but I still have about 5 to 10% who, for whatever reason, aren't doing it. Now, what I have done over the years is I've become very flexible, especially since I have smaller classes, to give them extra time. So I'll let them know, hey, look, if you're not able to do that this week, let me know when you can do it, and I will basically reopen the assignments so you can participate. You can put your work in there, because I'd rather have them do it than not. But that's an extra management piece for me to do, and I don't think I would do that for a really large class. It would be impossible to manage that, wouldn't it? For smaller classes, though, I can give them additional flexibility. But yeah, things still happen. So it's interesting because even in an asynchronous course or an asynchronous mode, there is synchronicity, right? You can't just do it. It's not, our courses typically are not designed for anytime, anywhere during this period of time of the semester. It just doesn't work that way. We actually had a course design that was set up that way, where students could do their work pretty much anytime. It was like gamified. They could pick their levels and do as much work as they wanted points for. And we had a 40% failure rate because people would wait until the very end to get started, and then they would give up because it was just too much to do at the very end. So we restructured that course, put in the milestones, essentially gave it a synchronous piece for even the asynchronous course. And now we have, we have the rates of success that we were expecting. Yeah. Okay. Well, so Holly, one of the things you could think about though is proposing a session to bring out some of these questions and ideas, and to talk, do like an early talk about your dissertation topic, your idea. When I was doing my dissertation, I got invited to a very small conference. And the idea was that it was a place where we could come in and share our ideas, essentially, like our proposals and what we were planning for research, and get feedback from some experts in the field. And it was really a valuable experience. So it's an opportunity.
Yes,
So
that's where I'm at. And like I said, I have a lot of war stories as well because I love the idea of choice. My only thing is, how many can we ever eliminate excuses? Like, we can offer these choices, but can
yeah,
we ever eliminate excuses? And excuses and distractions have always been very paramount, and that's really for any inclusive learning space. And so I think that going into this modality is still my number one. But you're right, it's not universal here, even on our campus of 33,000. And yeah, everyone's like, how do you do this and why do you do this? And I'm like, do you know who the students are? Like, and our students have changed a lot. So I really want to know factors that influence their decision on their pattern, but at the same time, that's more qualitative. But I have a longitudinal, I have a time series, I have a couple others sets. And what's good and bad about my situation now is that I, of course, have been teaching for a long time as a lecturer and not really doing the research, because I don't get paid to do research. I get paid to teach.
yeah, that's true. You know, I think, and on that last point, I think it's one of the reasons why I know I have a student who's a community college instructor who's looking for research in the community college level and doesn't find as much of that in the HyFlex literature of the 300 studies or whatever. There are some at the community college level, but a lot of them are at the university level. And the reason why is primarily because the faculty at a research university have to do research and they have to get published. And some of them are getting grants for their HyFlex work, which means they have to publish their findings and things like that. And so there is that aspect of it. And at the K-12 level, it's even more that where teachers in particular at the K-12 level, they're not getting any credit for publishing unless they actually are doing it as part of a graduate program or something, I would think. Jerry and Gina, you probably know more about that. But I think it's one of the reasons why we don't see a lot written about that, even though there's a lot of experimentation going on and a lot of modification too. Because this always has, I mean, we have general principles that we talk about, we try to follow. But the implementation is very contextual typically, and even within the same department, there'll be contextual differences from course to course, from faculty to faculty. The challenge for us sometimes is, well, how much do we allow for that? And how much, can we not afford not to allow it? Because it might not happen. So Julie, you've said you've been doing some similar things over 30 years or so. What do you see that you've been doing that's related to this? We're talking about multiple modes with student flexibility.
So the thing that's been challenging in my context is that I'm responsible for helping our faculty to prepare a variety of modalities. And they've been using the language of HyFlex, I think, more as a blending of opportunities than a strictly HyFlex process where everything in a course is available in multiple modalities. In other words, we have some courses that very little of our stuff happens on site. So there might be a blended course that's synchronous and asynchronous with live Zoom sessions. Sometimes there's some opportunities physically gathered, and that might be Zoom accessible, but oftentimes it isn't. And so the language is being thrown around in ways that isn't necessarily what I think you all intend for it to be used as. And trying to help them to understand that is a challenge. I haven't seen papers talking about how we come from our own experience and we're assuming what it is that we think HyFlex means when in fact it might not be. We've been moving more and more to a more competency-based mentor assessed model as an alternative to our master's program that's in a blended synchronous asynchronous situation. It's all offsite. So we're trying to broaden the modalities, but it's still not quite how I think you're defining it.
Yeah, so I've used the definition essentially over time that HyFlex requires an in-person and an online modality. It might have two online modalities, but it wouldn't be a requirement from my definition at least. And there has to be student flexibility. So students are the ones choosing. Otherwise, it's just a hybrid design, right? Which we know. But over time, even in the courses I'm teaching, like especially, well, during the pandemic, everything went online for a while. But even when we came back, my students didn't want to come back into class. They wanted online. So I was offering HyFlex courses with a face-to-face option that nobody was taking advantage of. So the question for me became, well, do I still offer the face-to-face option, or just go to online and call it something else, like online HyFlex or online Flex, or sometimes we'll call flexible bicroness or something like that, just strange names. Essentially giving students the flexibility. And where I am right now is that I think if I had 2 or 3 terms in a row where no student was interested in my program to being in person, I'd probably stop calling that HyFlex and just call it and come up with a different term. I'd probably just use bicroness as a term or something like that. But um, but I'm not giving up on that. There are some situations where I know a whole campus, I think I can say this, Pierce College, where one of our collaborators, Kathy Littlefield, is from. She, they were doing HyFlex for a while, and they called it Pierce Fit. Small institution, private school, Philadelphia, in near the city center. And so they had people who wanted to be there on campus and those who couldn't be there on campus, they did it asynchronously online. When the pandemic hit, closed the campus, everybody went online. And what they decided after the pandemic was not to bring most of the students back to campus. And so all their courses went to online flexible. They would still probably use the term HyFlex for it, but it's really online synchronous and online asynchronous as a choice. And so that's really where we're going. And actually, if you look through the literature from the bigger studies that have come out, EDUCAUSE did a their big report on technology, and some of the other big pictures. Where are we going from here? It's all about flexibility, right? Giving students the flexibility they need, which may or may not include a face-to-face component. Clearly we have a lot of schools, a lot of schools have to have the face-to-face. There's a good reason to have face-to-face for the program, or because of the social situation, or because of the legal situation where people have to be there, or they can't take all online courses or whatever. But when students are given the freedom to choose, and we're making sure they're getting quality wherever they're choosing, we are finding a large shift towards online. Actually, I think someone just put this in the chat earlier, right? A lot of online. Let's see, Jerry, you were saying that, right? 90 to 100% attending synchronously. Asynchronously as in person?
Synchronously, like via Zoom.
Yeah.
And so I'm offering this semester on our campus, HyFlex. That's actually what they call it.
HyFlex.
HyFlex. That's how it's designated in the registrar's office.
Right.
And the students were not interested in coming on campus.
Mm-hmm.
They were interested. And so what I am noticing is that I am having a high turnout in person, synchronously.
Right.
And I was surprised by that. I thought that they would take advantage of the flexibility that they had. We record all the sessions. I have, different assignments, they have the same assignment, but, it's expected if I have it set up appropriately. And every week I am stunned that there is such a full turnout. Now it may be my wonderful personality, but I don't think that's it. I think they enjoy seeing each other, and they enjoy the instructional engagement things that I have planned for them during that time. That so I have to say I was a bit surprised. I was not expecting that to be an ongoing thing, but it hasn't diminished even now that we're towards the end of our semester, because we start earlier, and it persists. The attendance is higher, I think, this semester than in previous, but I have not offered a course in HyFlex before. And so I am really favoring it, and I actually am going to do an assessment at the end of the semester to see if this particular group of students, because I do have them, they're a part of a cohort, if they want the way in which this is being delivered to continue, right? And so because it's all about them, and at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So you were expecting more students to do it asynchronously?
Yes, I thought that because they work all my students are adult career changers and predominantly, and they work, all of them work during the day in school. So I wasn't expecting for them to be readily and willing to attend on a Monday night. But I was wrong. So, and I don't say that very often. No, I'm just kidding.
Jerry, have you ever asked them what their intention or why they're making the choices they are?
I am going to do it at the end. So, because I'm trying to discern whether or not the next course that's offered in their sequence is a course that they would prefer to have delivered in that same fashion, in that same. And if they say yes, then we will continue to do that. I think they are enjoying the way it's being delivered. I think they find it, I think they're gaining more out of the course by attending synchronously. And again, I think it builds community. I mean, you're dealing with teachers from all different, throughout a particular region. And they have a lot of commonalities that they get to share. And I do notice that they also stay on longer, even when class is over. There seems to be a bit of wanting to linger. And I do log on early to allow for opportunities for students to ask me questions or just to connect. So I make that available to them, and I'm always available to them, but I just started that practice of, always being there sooner. And so if not, then I hang out with me, myself and I, and that's good. That's just fine too. So.
Yeah, you can play around with the AI summary that's being generated if you have that activated, because it listens whether you're recording or not, I found out. Interesting. One of the things I do is I ask the students at the beginning of the semester, how do you intend to participate in this class? Because I want to know what to expect. And I want them to think about their participation, what mode might be best for them, or are they limited to a particular mode because of the location or their work schedule or their family schedule or whatever. And then I ask them near the midterm, so how's it going so far? Let me know how has it worked out? Have you been able to do this the way you wanted to? Are you satisfied with your choices? And then I ask them again at the end, essentially the same thing. And I use this ongoing reflection kind of forum post.
No, I see what you're saying. No, I do check in with them about the course and the course content and the delivery of the course. And for instance, they wanted their first initial discussion post to be shifted from being due on one particular day of the week to another day of the week, which, I'm happy to do. It was not but as far as digging a little deeper as to them personally, I do constantly check in with them. But I really want to gain some information about the choices that they specifically are making without the benefit of hearing it from their peers. So I want everyone to contribute to that in that conversation. As you know, sometimes only a few will speak for the group or will speak on their behalf, which gives you the impression it is for the group.
Julie?
So one of the things that I'd be curious to see in your cohort, as well as to hear from the rest of you, is I've kind of tracked the introverted thinkers differently from the extroverted thinkers, the way people process information. And I have had the same course be a very different experience depending on the personalities of the people involved. The introverted processors thrive in a space where they can do the asynchronous learning and get their ideas together before they name what it is that they're thinking. The extroverted processors need the live community to be able to help them to make connections and meaning making in the experience that they're having. And so when I've had a group like you're currently describing, Jerry, it's been more because they're extroverted processors than because of their preference in terms of the type of course. They know that they need that live interaction. It's deadly for them to be in a primarily asynchronous class. So I'd be curious how that fits.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have teaching a course this semester. Most of my classes, I get about 60 to 70% of the people online synchronous. And then the other ones are doing it asynchronously. And in one class, a few people are coming in person. But the same class I taught, the previous time I taught it about a year ago or so, after 2 or 3 weeks, there was only like 1 or 2 people doing it synchronously. Everyone else was choosing the asynchronous, and it was a relatively small class, but it really surprised me. And after like 2 weeks in a row, when only one person was showing up, and I had to say, well, let's go over the main ideas, but this isn't going to be a full kind of a interactive lecture kind of class because it's not going to work that way. We agreed as a class to shift it all to asynchronous only. So I could better prepare for just asynchronous learners that week, and I didn't have to rely on the synchronous interaction to create a recording for the asynchronous learners. I could basically do the traditional like 20 to 25 minutes of overview, more individual exploration, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know if it was because of the way they were thinking or because of their life patterns or they just didn't. I don't know. I don't know exactly why. Maybe I should have explored that a little bit more. I wasn't writing a dissertation on it, so I didn't have IRB. I probably couldn't talk about it anyway. But that's an interesting idea. I think that there are actually there's several different decision factors that they're using to decide synchronous or asynchronous, and that's another one. I think another dimension that would be worth looking at. We created a little tool on the HyFlex Learning Community website that was designed for like a flow chart to help a student figure out, well, how should you participate this week if you have choices, and it kind of walked them through this, what in our minds, at least, a logical way of thinking about, well, what's the best way for me to participate like this week. Gloria, do you remember that tool?
I do. Don't ask me to pull it up in a minute. I can try.
No. Remember, we started with kind of like, okay, what are the basic parameters of your ability to participate? Can you be here in person at all? If not, okay, well then you're gonna be doing this online, right? Because maybe it's location or time or whatever. Do you have the time available for the live class? And if not, the answer is, well, you can't be here in person. You don't have the time at the live sessions. You're an asynchronous learner in this class. Congratulations. Now here's what you can do to help yourself succeed.
It is important that students do base their decision on what mode they choose on more than just, oh, I don't want to get up on a Friday morning, right? Or whatever it might be. And we know that happens. But as an example, at our institution, we just jumped from D3 athletics to D1 athletics. And that is a huge culture shift and culture shock for faculty. What do you mean that's an excused absence, that they're in the NCAA tournament or whatever, right? And so we're scrambling to find ways that we can offer more flexibility to our student athletes and also to the rest of our students. So whether that's, HyFlex in its entirety or scheduling changes, because we happen to be more of a residential campus. We don't have a lot of online learning in the undergraduate. But another question that I do have for the group is, are you finding some pushback to online in general with the advent of academic integrity concerns around AI use? We're getting that. Well, then I'm going to make them take the test in class. I'm going to make them write a assignment or a paper by hand in class, those kinds of things. So any thoughts on that related to HyFlex and flexibility?
I think what we're talking a lot about AI, and I've been thinking a lot about AI, and I think one of the things that's important to note is AI has always been here, right? Just in different ways. And so it's not all of a sudden this new thing for a lot of us. And students are going to have to learn how to use it, right? So the more we have them integrate AI tools in our classrooms, the more they get to like experiment, figure out what it's like, use it responsibly, things like it's going to be like Wikipedia, right? Remember when Wikipedia came out, we were all like, oh, right. And it was like this big thing. AI is the same, right? Like responsible use of AI will be a thing. And so there's not been so much backlash because we know it's just another new tool or another new thing that we have to integrate into our classes.
I think it's the speed at which it hit. And just to give you another example, today, I opened up my Adobe Acrobat Pro. I opened up a PDF, and all of a sudden it generated a summary of my document for me without asking. I now have an AI assistant in my PDF that then also lets me ask questions about summarize the blah, 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 or find the whatever. And I admit to thinking a little bit like, what are we going to use for an assessment? You know, it's some of our tools of assessment have been kind of taken away from us. And yes, we do have to teach students how to appropriately use and cite and all those other things around it. But for me, especially since I'm supposed to help teach faculty, it's the speed at which it appeared on the horizon that's been challenging. Yes, and definitely feel run over by Gen AI tools. That's how the mood is around some of our faculty and myself.
Yeah, last year I think there was so much about, oh my gosh, what is this now? You know, it was in the news stories, everything, and so it had its cycle. This year, it's not in that kind of cycle anymore. But I think we're starting to see more careful thought about how to actually use this well. It's not going away. And so I know in my own courses with grad students, many of whom are teachers or trainers or instructional designers themselves, every class I teach now has a topic near the end of the class about using AI tools in whatever content area we're talking about. And we have some really interesting discussions, and they're using it already in lots of different ways. And so what I've been trying to do is figure out ways of using it myself to help create the work I have to do, but then acknowledging it to my students. Hey, this was done with AI, and here's what I have to do to make it work, right? So prompts, but also how I had to adjust it afterwards. So as a tool for me to use, but not just to take out of the box and say, oh, you know, spit this out and now boom, that's right in front of students. It doesn't work that way. And I think are using these AI tools now, like for example, we do with our recordings. And we get the summaries and various things, and sometimes they're hilarious, and sometimes I edit them. Sometimes I don't edit all the funny stuff out because I want them to see that AI is not reliable in that way that you can just say, oh, AI did it and it must be great. Kind of like, you know, online. Just because it's online, does that make it accurate? Absolutely not. So yeah, so it has changed the way we're doing it. I don't hear at least anything pushing back from online courses though around AI. I think we've always had challenges with academic integrity in online courses, and some faculty address it, some faculty don't. They ignore it. And I think I can only speak for myself, I guess. I ask my students if they're going to use AI, tell me when you're using it. And, you know, I say, you can use it fine, but, you know, you can't turn in AI as your work, but you can use AI as a support tool, like when you're writing your papers, but I want you to acknowledge it. You know, so for example, if they're using it in a paper, it needs to be cited appropriately, and they need to explain, you know, kind of what they did, why they use it. Is almost like an aside from their academic writing.
To follow up about AI, I'd like to now train. I have a CS people, actually 2 people at my door right now, to train to predict how students will behave in my class. So based on how often they spend in my virtual world, how long they stream, how long they are doing on their assignment. So I'm looking at clickstream and some other behaviors and see if it's predictive. And I'm letting an AI do that. But my other thing is about note taking, and what the summary that you just said. I mean, I've had a PDF forever to ask the students to complete while we have the live stream class or the in-person class. It's just so that you cannot have, you know, extraneous cognitive overload, that you have something. There's a paper out there about pencils versus pexels. We are an iPad school, so all my students have iPads. So I think that there is, my thing is about assets, right? So what's the asset that's going to help them down the road? Can they save this and use this in the future? Is it taggable? Is it searchable? Will they be able to use it to come and a trusted site, right? Like I'm a trusted source. I'm providing very valuable information expertise in this discipline. So how are they doing that? I don't know. It's a lot of fun stuff going on, but AI is definitely on the horizon. And I'm like, how do I pull from all these different directions? Because I really want to focus on modality right now.
Yeah, focus. Dissertation requires focus. Get it done. You can do whatever you want after that. Other comments from those of you who are been doing this for a while about what's going on? Has HyFlex changed the way you're doing it in the last year or so?
I think a lot of faculty are using HyFlex more without calling it HyFlex.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just something to consider. I think students are even like requesting HyFlex more. Can I just zoom into class or something like that without calling it HyFlex?
I think that's been true for a while. Yeah.
Kind of the same here. I think it's rather than an entire course being HyFlex, it's like parts of it are. Or assignments are, again, because of this D1 athlete situation. We're helping faculty create flexible learning chunks, if you will, rather than an entire course.
As far as student learning goes, I think this kind of the informal approach and some of the some of the things in courses are flexible. You can do them in different ways than others. I think that's certainly valid. I think one of the challenges with that being the approach is if you have some more I don't know, organizational goals as far as giving access to programs to students from various markets you can't get to with your traditional courses. Essentially, students who need flexibility might find you and come to your program or take your course because it's flexible, because they know they need the flexibility. If they don't know it's going to be provided to them, they may not show up at all because they can't bank on that, right? Is it going to be a nice teacher who will let me do Zoom or watch a recording for me when I can't be there for the 3 weeks I have to be on a business trip or what, or not? Because sometimes teachers aren't nice that way. Even teachers who've got Zoom stuff all over and they won't record for whatever reason. Anyway, so I do think there's some value in doing it formally, but even on our campus, I think we have about 40 class sections every semester on average that are officially HyFlex. And I would have to say there's probably 200 or more other ones that are unofficial HyFlex, where the teachers, there's one department in particular, I won't name, who they're classically known for students knowing, you don't have to go to class. If you want to go to class, you can, but you don't have to. You can just write the papers, do the readings, et cetera. And they're happy with that. And the faculty are they admit it. They admit it in meetings with other faculty. So that's the kind of thing that my challenge with that as an instructional designer and a faculty member is that it's a lazy design. It's students can fall through the gaps so easily, and I don't think that's good practice, although I certainly understand why it's being done. And it still happens. Yeah. Jerry, any final comments? Any last pitch for the conference? We have a minute or so.
No, I don't. But the only thing I'd like to say is we hope that you'll join us. We look forward to maybe seeing you submit a proposal for the conference, and that you could possibly present. And if you're not at a position where you want to submit a proposal, maybe you just would like to attend and learn from those who are doing work in that area that could benefit whatever you're doing personally or professionally. So
That's
hope
right.
to see you there.
And we encourage you to bring a friend, right?
Right.
So,
or two.
yeah, or two, right? Well, thank you very much for your time and for sharing some time with us. Once again, this recording will be available through the HyFlex Learning community, and maybe some other places we'll share it for people who are looking for information about the conference and things. And I should be able to send it out to you also just as a direct link afterwards. Thank you for your time once again, and hope to see you again in a future webinar, or especially maybe this summer at the conference. Okay, bye-bye.